to Daily Mirror and to this online discussion with regards to the tourism industry. It's do a small test and see if our panelists are on, if they can hear me. Kimarli?
Yes.
Are we good? Harpo, hi. Harpo, I think you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear that. Dileep, hi.
I can hear you. Hi.
Okay. And Mahen?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. So a very good morning to you. Welcome to this online session hosted by Daily Mirror, where we hope to discuss the way forward for the tourism industry in Sri Lanka. As you know, the industry has taken a severe beating as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. We have had 3 waves, and now there's also a talk of a 4th wave. So in today's discussion titled Tourism, the Way Forward, we look back at the impact the pandemic has had on the industry, the current state of the industry, and the way forward. Just a reminder that this discussion is being live streamed via the Daily Mirror website, on Daily Mirror Facebook, and also on the Daily Mirror YouTube page. Today we have an elite panel to discuss our topic. Let me introduce you to our 4 panelists. Taking part in the discussion today is Kimarli Fernando, the chairperson of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. Good morning, Kimarli. We also have Dileep Mudadeniya, representing the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka. Good to have you, Dileep. We also have Harpo Goonerathne, president of the Colombo City Restaurant Collective. Hi, Harpo.
Morning.
And also Mahen Kariyawasan, the immediate past president of the Sri Lanka Association of Inbound Tour Operators. Morning, Mahen.
Morning.
So a warm welcome to all of you. We also have a number of people following this discussion from the hotel and travel sector, as well as the media. Those of you who are joining us via Zoom, we will be taking your questions later on. If you would like to pose a question, please please click on the raise hand option, and we will give you the opportunities to speak. For those of you following the discussion via Daily Mirror, the Facebook page, you can also post your questions as a comment, and we will pick your questions and pass it on to our panelists. So let's get started. To kick things off, I would like to invite our 4 panelists to make a brief opening statement. Firstly, let me invite Kimarli Fernando, chairperson of the Sri Lanka Development Authority, to share a few words. Kimarli,
thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. As you know, last year, March, the airport was closed for international travelers. And January this year, we opened after a pilot project. We opened on the 21st of January for international travelers. With quite strict regulations indicated by the Ministry of Health. Now, without looking too much to the past, but looking at today, the government is on as most of you know, that we are on an accelerated vaccination program now, with about 5.7 million vaccinations already given. If you look at the population of Sri Lanka, which is about 21.9 million, the intention is, the plan and the action is to have 50% of the population, basically 30 years and above. That's about 11.4 million people to be vaccinated by September, right? So the government's plan is that 100% of Colombo will be vaccinated actually this month, and Western province to be vaccinated by August. So this is significant because it will give confidence first to our Sri Lankans and also to the international traveler going forward. So that's basically how that works with the vaccination, and I think that's a game changer for all countries, not only Sri Lanka. Of course, as you know, some countries we have banned ourselves, like for example, India, South America, South Africa, we have banned. There are some countries who have actually said, do not travel kind of to our country as well. So we hope that with the vaccinations that we would all together as an industry can convince those governments as well to permit us to have tourists coming over to our country. With regards very quickly to the health guidelines, the health guidelines are evolving and it's changing. And trust me, a lot of work from myself and my complete team has been taken to coordinate with the health authorities. Some things we cannot negotiate with them. So because as per the quarantine law, they are the decision makers. So we work with them, we convince them that we are responsible, and several guidelines have been issued. Now, for example, event management, we are still negotiating how to assist them, including I spoke to one of the key stakeholders in the industry recently. So we are trying to assist them. Still, there are, now the 7th of July, there was a new guideline, but still there are some constraints with regards to PCR tests done for vaccinated passengers. We are aware of those constraints. We are working on them. Kids having to get the PCR test done, this is another constraint. So we continuously sort of follow up on them and with them and try to, we also have to act responsibility, and then only we gain the respect. So it's both ways. Visiting sites, there's a challenge with regards to where you can visit and so on. We are working with the various stakeholders. Not everything is within the decision making or jurisdiction, if you like, of tourism. So we need to coordinate when wildlife is willing to open and so on. CCF has already informed us when they will open. Financial support, lastly, before I hand over, is that I've been working with the central bank and so on with regards to moratoriums and so on. It hasn't worked as well as we wanted it to, because the decision making is with the banking system, but we continue to have a dialogue. Several benefits and support was given, but it's not enough considering what the industry has gone through to 2019 to 20 with the COVID. Perhaps maybe I should also add that looking forward, we are looking to Sri Lankan Airlines is going to launch a buy one, get one free soon, together with the industry for majority of the flights that they're going to operate, excluding Russia. And would be for foreign passport holders. They would roll it out gradually, depending on which countries are open. So for example, Germany, they would roll out, Middle East, some countries they would roll out. So gradually roll out to some of the other countries. So the industry stakeholders are working to come up with kind of a package so that when they do finalize that, we would together with them launch that. With regards to returning Sri Lankan diaspora, we believe is another key market now with the relaxed, somewhat relaxed health guidelines. From the 7th of July, we believe that the return in Sri Lankan expats would be really valuable. For them, they spend a lot, they stay longer, and so on. And of course, the Russia, CIS countries who are willing to travel able to travel, who don't have a lot of options at the moment, except Maldives, I think, because Indonesia, Bali, Thailand, Philippines are limited openings. And lastly, Air France, which you all know, is thinking of flying to Sri Lanka in November. Also, French market is important. Actually, they brought in about 100,000 tourists to Sri Lanka. That's about almost 5%, 4.5% of tourists. So those are areas, you saw in the media today about digital nomads. That's a cabinet paper which we did. But there again, there are things that we need to improve a little bit also, increase the bandwidth to really leverage on that. And then we are in touch with immigration, asking them exactly when it will be launched. We have also got a cabinet approval for extended tourist visas. So extended tourist visa is one, and digital nomad 1-year visa is another. So those are so I will leave you with that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kimarli. Next, I would like to invite Dileep Mudadeniya from representing the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka. Dileep, if you could share some thoughts.
Yes, thank you, Iswaran and the Daily Mirror for giving us a chance for the invite
Hotel Association to our views as one of the leading associations in the country. So I would approach this in three ways. I think the one, when you're looking at the reopening strategy, obviously we need to go out there and ensure that we promote the country in respective country markets, which has an appeal, etc. Second is basically looking at the on entry protocols and the local logistics and the arrangements that actually has to be arranged from the time of airport arrival, going to the respective sites, the transportation, make it easy and make it more convincing for travelers to come in. The relaxation is also good. It has to be relaxed to a point where people will feel it that it's actually good enough to visit. The third point is basically from the members' perspective as well, what we are going through in terms of the hotels. So as you know, any destination has, when you're promoting tourism, we call 4 A's. Those 4 A's have to be in place. The first one, we call it the amenities. The amenities means that you need to have various activities which goes along with the destination, maybe dining, maybe excursions, maybe sites, etc. The other one is basically the attractions. The attractions needs to be there in the destination for people to visit and see. There can be man-made attraction or there can be even natural attractions. Then the third one is accessibility, which is basically people have to come, be an island nation. People should be able to come easily to the destination. And the fourth one, which I'm going to stress a little bit, is the accommodation. So those are 4 A's that one should have in a destination. So we need to ensure that all 4 A's are actually in place to a manner in which is conducive for them to travel. So where the accommodation is concerned, as you know, Sri Lankan hotel sector has gone through a huge amount of challenges, starting from 2019, the Easter bomb attack, and then later on, when we were about to come up with that, again, the corona came in, COVID-19. So as a result, currently, it is very important that the representations have already made various discussions with the government to restructure the debt that we have, so which includes basically requests that in the waiver of the interest for the 3 years starting from 2019 going about 2022 financial year, complete waiver of the initial the interest that we have for all the loans, existing loans. That's number one. And number two is that we also have estimated amount 350 billion rupee loans that are being dispersed by various commercial banks and the government banks to the private sector, to the leisure sector. And this needs to be restructured and in various ways. So that needs to take place in order for us, the hotels, to come back and promote and then actually be actively involved. The third one is then these hotels, as you know very well, all the hoteliers, we also will know, when you close down a hotel for 2-3 months, forget about 1.5 to 2 years, obviously it will actually add a lot of maintenance costing to that. The hotels have been closed for nearly a year and a half now. And there's a lot of maintenance work that needs to be done. There's a soft refurbishment needs to be in place. So in order the destination to be actually a little bit of higher end destination, or at least to command a premium to service the formal sector, we need this amount of support that needs to come in to look at kind of soft loan scheme as well for the hoteliers. So these are 3 things that parallel to all this, we have to look at it, because it's, as I mentioned, the 4 A's are important to the destination, not only the accessibility, not only the amenities, not only the attractions, but the accommodation sector as well. So having said that, the Hotel Association members are actually also the members who are paying a lot of taxes in the formal sector, and we're also adding a lot of value to the employment creation, as well as the backward integration of the economy in terms of buying vegetables and various other backward integration with the rest of the areas of the economy. So this is something to look at it in the first place. So second, I think I mentioned, I think which is covered also about the overseas promotion that needs to be done in a more organized manner, where actually we can move into the key markets. Chairperson mentioned about France. There are France coming in, the Russian market charters that are coming in, so we need to aggressively be there as well. And then of course the keeping in mind the responsibility as well in terms of the relaxation of the local guidelines that are there for tourists, which have been greatly appreciated so far, the steps that have been taken, and there are a few more to be adjusted. If those can be done, I think we are ready to a great year ahead and to move on from there.
Thanks, Dileep. Thank you so much. Next, I would like to open the floor to Harpo. Harpo, I think you're muted though.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for Daily Mirror for inviting the CCRC association to be a part of this very important panel discussion. And what I like to emphasize here is, like, I'll very briefly tell you, I mean, everybody knows what has happened to us for the last from 2019, that the industry is crying about it, like Kimarli said, let's try to keep the past, keep it behind now and move forward. But yes, from 2019, we had a big impact on the restaurant industry, and that took about till November, it really started picking up for us, and then of course March it hit us again. But as an industry, we are a body of about 55 to 60 people now who are part of the association. And obviously, one of our cries have been for the last 1.5 years is, is the problem that we have had is the restaurants have been shut down, and we have had a huge impact on jobs, plus cash flows, which I'll be very honest, and also being able to, for our staff to adjust accordingly, because also it will be very traumatic for the staff going through all this thing, and COVID-1, COVID-2, COVID-3, we have maneuvered ourselves out knowing what we didn't know what COVID-1 was, what it was going to be like. But luckily we have learned a lot, through failure, you learn a lot of new things, So we are happy to be able to learn to manage a lot of things, from cash flows to dealing with suppliers, to dealing with landlords, to dealing with, staffing, as I said before. But these things are new to us, and we have managed to cope with it. I must say that the health authorities have given us guidelines to work with, and we did lobby for the opening recently, which we are very grateful to the government and to the industry to allow us the restaurants to open once again. We had to make an appeal because we were going into dire straits actually, because it was too much for us to cope up with, and now we see people coming through. We have been given a 25% occupancy per property, which I think that's a good start, and we must be grateful for that. And as you see, the restaurant industry plays a huge impact in the tourism sector for the simple practice. You look at any country like Singapore, Malaysia, wherever, the restaurant business is a booming business. You go to any country, people step out to the restaurant to see what the vibe is, what the local feel is, And we are happy to be able to now have that coming through at least for the locals right now. Like Kimarli said earlier, hopefully we'll have the Sri Lankan expats coming in, because I'm sure a lot of those people want to come back to Sri Lanka, and that's going to help the industry a lot. Financially, we were hit big time, and we have made representations to the government and the central bank on the moratoriums as well, where some of the members of the association have gone for moratoriums, but obviously with the lockdowns, they are obviously having cash flow issues there. So hopefully those are going to work out. And we also look forward to, once tourists come back, all these beautiful restaurants, all these lovely sites, the archaeological sites we have in Sri Lanka and especially Colombo, that you will have people coming back and patronizing our restaurants. Don't forget, we have a few restaurants and bars which are world-renowned bars, or some of Asia's top restaurants and bars. So we have something to offer everybody who's coming through. And we look forward to that. And of course, we also have to be more flexible when it comes to, as I said, okay, we are grateful for the 25%, but we need to open up, and and I don't understand why the government they don't realize there's nothing called a bar license or a nightclub license or a karaoke license. When the health authorities come up and say bars are closed, karaoke bars are closed, it doesn't make sense, because there's nothing called a bar license, So these are little things the health authorities need to understand, because those are the things which we need to open up as well. Right now, we have been told we can't open up a bar. And, so those are little things, obviously, someone will have to advise them, or if we are there, we can advise them. But saying that, yes, the restaurants are, for the last 2 weeks, things have picked up. And we look forward to welcoming people back into our restaurants.
Thank you, Harpo, for sharing your thoughts. Next, I would like to invite Mahen Kariyawasan from the Sri Lanka Association of Inbound Tour Operators.
Yes, thank you, Iswaran, and thank you, Daily Media, for inviting Slaito for this important webinar. We appreciate it very much. Just to give a small introduction to Slaito, Slaito is the apex body for inbound tourism. In Sri Lanka, we got about 200 members of DMCs. We also have an alliance with the One Industry, One Voice, which is a association of around 15 trade associations together, where we come in for our common issues. Slaito engages around 11,500 people in our industry directly. And of course, we have 3 million people depending on tourism in the country altogether. And it's a $4.5 billion industry for the country. At the moment, our major issue, that one of the major issues we have is the sustainability of our industry. We are very thankful to the government for extending all these moratoriums and other credit facilities. The minister himself has taken a lot of initiative in this regard, and also the chairperson of SLTDA, I must say. But of course, we are expecting that we could have a credit line to sustain ourselves going forward, because we don't see a growth where we can come to the figures of 2018 back again for the next 1 year to 1.5 years. So it will be difficult for all our members to sustain ourselves if we don't have a credit line with some kind of grace period to come up for the next, let's say, 1.5 to 2 years. So we are looking forward for that. There's a lot of talk going on about it with the central bank and with the other banks, the world banks, and all these financial institutions. That's one. The second point is, I would say, we have to also develop a positive perception among the locals, because at the moment, the locals unfortunately has the idea that tourism brought COVID to Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, this is a big issue at the moment, whereas it was not. We had about 17,000 tourists that came between January and June, and out of which only around 120 cases were positive, and there was no anyone who got into the society or something like that with COVID. So this is another thing that we have to make people understand. I know Sri Lanka tourism is going on with the campaign. We as Light also has started the campaign to educate the local people the importance of tourism into the economy. Going forward with the promotions and also with the guidelines, I must say we should have a more friendly guideline system, the methodology of making a booking. At the moment, we have a little bit of a cumbersome system where a person who wants to visit Sri Lanka has to first log into the ETA, then he has to give us a number, and then we have to go make a hotel booking, that's okay. Then we have to make the payment in dollars for the 2 PCR tests to the SLTDA, and they have to confirm to immigration that the client is booked and he has the money for the PCR and the insurance has been received. And all this process takes about 2 to 3 working days. So, and it doesn't work in the weekend as well. So we have a lot of issues like that. So I think if you have to attract more people into the country, we should have a more simpler way of doing things, where we could pay directly to the hospitals, which is much cheaper as well for a DMC to do that, and a much quicker way to do it. And I think this PCR test, we are very happy the health department has relaxed last week the PCR regulation, the protocol regulations, but we still see that the fully vaccinated traveler has to do another PCR after 7 days of his journey into Colombo. So he does 1 PCR before he checks into the aircraft, 1 on arrival, 1 after 7 days, and 1 on departure. And in some countries like Russia, for example, you have to do another PCR when you get back to Russia. So I think these kind of steps have to be erased. And I think we have to recognize the international vaccine certificate when people come into the country, of course, keeping in line with the priority being the health of the local people. But I think a lot of things have changed, a lot of things are evolving. So I guess going forward, we have to look into this, and also to have, as Chairperson was saying, I was very happy to hear that some of the sites will be open soon. The wildlife parks, the Anuradhapura Candy Temple and so on are closed at the moment. So I hope this will be open going forward, because at the moment only Polonnaru and Sigiriya are open on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So I think it's difficult for us to promote a country when we have such a lot of regulations. So we need to ease all these regulations. And I would urge the SFTD also to be more friendlier towards the DMCs and the industry, rather than trying to control everything. For example, if I have a client going from Colombo to Kandy, we have to send an email. We have to inform him what time he goes to Kandy, what time, where will he stop, and so on. I think all those things are now not necessary after the vaccine process has come and the locals have also been vaccinated. We are very happy also to know that the locals in the industry are also being vaccinated right now as we speak. So that's a good sign. So I think we have to go and we have to make it more friendlier for the client to come, because the client coming all the way, spending all his money, wouldn't want to be locked up in a hotel or locked up in one place without moving. So I think that is another crucial point. The last thing is, of course, the minister has initiated some special promotions. We are very happy that Sri Lankan Airlines has come on board, offering the buy one, get one free initiative. We are waiting for confirmation from the Hotels Association about the same facility and the other cultural triangle and safari parks and so on. So I hope that will get off the ground. That will be operative maybe for 1 or 2 months to give some incentive for the traveler to come in. So let's hope. And Air France coming in 3 times a week from November also is a positive sign. So little by little things are opening up. So we hope that things will look brighter in the coming months, but it won't be a big influx altogether. It will work out very slowly, I guess. Thank you.
Thanks, Mahen. Thank you to all our panelists also for their opening remarks. Just a reminder, I see a lot of questions already popping up on Zoom as well as on Facebook. We will be taking your questions in a few minutes. But before that, I would just like to maybe get into a small discussion with our panelists. And if I may ask you, Kimarli, about some of the comments that were made so far by our fellow panelists on maybe easing the system in the future. Making more comfortable for tourists to come into Sri Lanka and enjoy our facilities. Is that something that that the Tourism Development Authority and the Tourism Ministry is looking at?
Actually, we need to first understand the reality. This is a health pandemic, so the decision, how many PCRs, quarantine period is decided by health. And I think that sometimes we get confused. So the health will tell you, I may not agree with all the PCR tests, but that's the regulation that health tells us, okay? So for example, if you're a vaccinated passenger, today he has to do, before he comes, of course, most airlines are asking for that. Then on arrival, which is I think fine, but then they're asking for 7 days. And that's a challenge because the client has left your hotel after 24 hours. So where do you find the client? So we have addressed those with health because it's impossible even for us as to monitor that. So first, we have to understand health makes the guideline on a number of PCR tests, and we are the messenger, so don't kill the messenger. So point 1. With regards to PCR test, what do we have to pay before, and why can't we pay the hotel, the hospital, and all this kind of a question, is that as per the health guidelines, a PCR test costs and insurance costs is a pre-requirement to get a visa. It's in the health guidelines, okay? So health guidelines says you have to get X amount of PCR tests and insurance for $12. At the moment, it's $12, right? So that's a requirement of the health guidelines. Then how do we as regulator implement it? We can't just say, oh, no, somebody likes to pay rupees, somebody wants to do this, somebody likes to do that. No. That is the first point. Second point, that so that has to be very clear in everyone's mind, right? So we did not say that we want PCR test paid before as a visa requirement. So how do you do the visa requirement is that you have to book your hotel wherever, whichever method you wish, whether it is online, whether it is a travel agent, whether it is hotel directly. We do not get involved. All we are saying to the guest is, with the bio bubble concept I'm talking, is that if you're vaccinated or not vaccinated, you apply for your visa, and a prerequisite of your visa is that you should have paid for PCR tests and insurance and booked a hotel in whichever manner way you want to book it, right? So when we got the safe travel stamp from the World Travel Council, the guidelines we gave, that's one of the reasons we got that even before Maldives. We were awarded the safe travel stamp because of the travel bubble concept. Now the good news is, of course, with the vaccinated passengers, they can leave in 24 hours, right? So they can leave in 24 hours. So they don't, then after that, they are like you and me. They are part of the community. With regards to not vaccinated passenger, they will continue to have to remain in the bio bubble, right? With regards to the dollar, why are you charging dollars and why not rupees? That is again because they have to pay for that before they come to Sri Lanka. It's part of the, okay? So why $40 and not $20 and not $50 or about $100? I mean, Europe, there is $95 pounds and so on. It is because we had, Honorable Minister, we had a meeting with all the health authorities, that is what authorized labs. There were at that time 5, and they were quoting all sorts of rates. Some quoted 6.5, some quoted 7.5, some quoted 7 plus PPE and transport, some quoted depending on the location and all sorts of things. So everyone wants to do like the nice parts, but then no one wants to go to all over the country. So with the Honorable Minister's leadership, we agreed with and also the health ministry officials were also there. The health ministry official actually specifically in charge of the private laboratories was there. And then it was discussed and agreed that we would charge $40 because it was roughly at that time, the exchange rate was about 7,500, right? So we organized that. Then we got relevant board approvals and we have got relevant secretaries, our secretary's approval to do that. Right? So it is not something it's like a figment of our things that we just decided some figure and did it. The advantage there is that then therefore everywhere in the country, because then the tourist applies. I can't say if you're going to Colombo charge $32, if you're going to Kandy charge $38, if you're going to Norelia charge $40. It's not practical for me, right? So we have to give one rate. And the exchange difference, appreciation or depreciation, currently Sri Lankan rupee is depreciating. So there's a balance, but if it appreciates or depreciates, the balance is kept in a fund in our institution, not that any of us are taking it and going home. It's kept in our institution as per the approval we have got. We are keeping it separate account and it will be used. So I think that's a little bit like a misunderstanding about it, that this is our idea that we want to get PCR tests and insurance done before. And I honestly totally agree with health on this, that we must make sure that the guest who's coming has paid for insurance and PCR. If you please look at Thailand, the prices are way higher than ours, way higher. So I don't think we should just talk about so much, like I see like letters written and so much media discussion on this $40. If we are so worried about $40, this is really concerning, right? And somebody has asked the question, $35 about the visa fees for the 1 year. What is the visa fee I'm seeing on chat? To answer your question is that current visa fees is $35, right? And we have asked immigration to please give the same rate if they can for 6 months for tourists. We have requested that, okay? So we met the Defense Secretary as well, and we have requested that. We are waiting for their response. We just asked just for 6 months, give us $35 for 6 months. That decision is their decision, not ours to make. However, we have made the request. With regards to digital nomad, it was approved only yesterday in the cabinet. So nation will charge for the 1 year visa. The moment we are informed, we will for sure keep the industry informed.
Are we, Kimarli, are we also looking at the option of allowing fully vaccinated tourists coming into the country without undergoing a quarantine?
Yes, absolutely. That's what I also think so. But am I the DG Health? I'm not. So what we have to do is we have to convince them to, because I have to tell the industry also one thing is that we've had people with vaccination, also a few who came through tourism also who's been positive. Not a lot, but it has happened. So what all do a PCR, I mean, what's on the flight is a flight airline requirement also. But arrival PCR, I think it's important to do. Okay, so I also agree with them. But the only one I'm not quite convinced is the one that they're saying to do on the 7th day, where the guest is in the community. How do we as a regulator even find them? We don't know where they are because they are part of the community. So that's actually, we've written to them about this and spoken to them, met them. So let's see, we will follow up closely on that.
Sorry, Dileep, thanks, Kimarli. Dileep, I was wondering if I can switch over to you, if you are there. Yes. You know, with the pandemic, we saw a lot of hotels depending on the local tourism industry. You know, we had the hotels were trying to sustain with local tourists. Is this something that was, you know, somewhat viable or fruitful for the hotel industry?
I think the importance of the domestic market shouldn't be I think it's not underestimated by anyone at all. And it's a very, very important market. And the local market actually comes in 3 ways. If it is for the resorts, it's looking at basically 3 areas. The resorts mainly coming from the leisure traveler coming on the weekend. If it is the city is concerned, it comes in more corporate, as well as your non-resident food and beverage guests. Those are the 3 things that basically we are looking at it, where the impact of the local domestic travel is concerned. And this is very, very important. But whether this is enough, no, this is not sufficient, especially when it comes to resort hotels. We have to run all 7 days with a certain amount of decent occupancy. In most hotels, the local segment that is going to give about 20% of the revenue in a good year. But that 20% is coming is very, very important in terms of revenue, in terms of to have the high occupancies on the weekend, etc. So it's a market that, you know, we should pay attention to. It's a market that we should actually develop and then take special care on it. And there's a lot of research that has come in. Some of the local domestic travel has shown some interest in that, you know, once the tourist comes back, they'll get a bad treatment from hotels, or they will be neglected again. All these deals will go out. I think those are very valid concerns that every one of us should address. And this is, 20% of the segment of any business is significant. And I think that's remain as an important element, but it is not enough to sustain our business. We need both domestic as well as international traveler.
And Harpo, I mean, when it comes to restaurants as well, I know I visited visited down south recently, and I found that some of these restaurants were also saying that, you know, without foreign tourists, although we are not, you know, putting aside the importance of the local tourism industry, without foreigners, that, you know, they just can't sustain themselves. I mean, is there something beyond that that they need to start looking at now?
See, it's a very good point, because I think it's a good lesson for all of us to learn from this whole pandemic as well. You know, when you put your eggs into one basket, and when that flips, you have a problem, right? Like what Dileep said before. You know, before the pandemic and during the 30-year-old war, what did we depend on? We depend on the local tourists. And don't forget, during that 30-year-old war, there were a lot of investments also coming into the restaurant industry. I mean, I'm saying personally, I know a lot of restaurant people invested heavily during the 30-year-old war, you know, and there were tourists coming through. But what has happened was, when the tourism boom started happening, you know, most people put their concentration on tourism per se, you know, foreigners. And after the Easter Sunday attack, we suddenly realized we are too dependent on them. And the local economy runs a lot on the local people. You see, it's not only the person at a restaurant, it's the guy who's selling a family outside his restaurant, or the guy who's selling eggs, or the guy who's doing a ride to one of the tourists in a sky shop. You see, So I think it's something that we always must be aware of, is that we shouldn't put our eggs into one basket when it comes to tourism. We should spread it equally amongst, amongst the locals as well. Don't forget the locals this time, were not able to travel overseas. Even last year, there are quite a few numbers of locals who travel overseas during the summer vacations with their children. They go off to Europe or wherever. But obviously, there the people who had the cash didn't know where to spend it this time. So they moved into all the hotels, took up villas, took up various locations in the country, and obviously that injection of money coming into the hotels helped a lot. Like, you have to pay for maintenance, salaries. If you close your restaurant, your maintenance cost is so high. See? It's like the restaurants. If you close the restaurants down, when you come back to open them, it's costing you a lot of money. And where do you get this money coming from? Because you are shut down. There's no income. Of course, yes, we were fortunate enough to do delivery. The restaurant business did delivery, but that was just to keep your head above water and pay your staff a bit of salaries or whatever, just to keep them also going. Because don't forget, it's the personnel who keep this industry going. It's the staff who keep our industry going. And without our staff, we are nobody. You can invest big hotels and do so many things. If you don't have your staff to serve, tourism is not going to take off. And what we have to understand, a lot of the people are moving out of tourism because they have not had work for 1.5 years. A lot of people are finding new jobs, doing their own thing. So we are going to have a HR crisis also when it comes to moving forward, because our trained people are moving away. Once Europe or once the Middle East opens up, or once Maldives open up, most of our staff will travel overseas for jobs because they are financially hit. So you're going to have that issue as well. I think the HR aspect of the tourism thing is also hugely important. So like what you asked me was, yes, I think we should not only depend on tourists. We should be able to market ourselves to the locals as well. That's my thinking.
A good point, Harpo, you made about retaining people in the industry. I know I've spoken to a few people involved in the industry, and they were saying that they had to close some of these small hotels, some of these restaurants. Even staff have looked at opportunities not just out of the country but even out of the industry to survive. And
that's true what you said. If you look at even in the US, in Europe, even big chains like McDonald's and them are finding it difficult to find people, and they're actually doubling their hourly wages now. So it's not only here; it's been felt right around the globe that people are moving out. And your service charges are dropping big time, because we don't forget, a lot of the staff depend on big service charges. So after 2019, that took a big impact on their purse. Most hotels are giving service charge. Restaurants and hotels easily average over 50, 60, 70,000 rupees. Now for a doorman to get a service charge of 75,000 rupees is a lot of money, and they have based their lives, their education, their children, all on that. So what are they going through right now? So that is a big problem. You see, it's not only it's a service charge. It's at the end of the day, it's income for the steward or for your gardening, your hotel or a restaurant. They depend on these things. They don't get tips.
Yeah.
Before they used to get a lot of tips as well. So it's a financial nightmare for some of this stuff.
That's right. This tips is something a lot of these guys were telling me as well, that without tips they can't survive. Mahen, how do we look beyond this? How do we look at retaining hotel employees, restaurant employees and staff for when we don't have tourists coming in, at least at the moment? Is there something else?
Yeah, actually at the moment, even we DMCs also have the same problem. I think most of the staff who were working in the DMCs, like I said before, have left the trade and gone and joined somewhere else. So we will have a difficulty when we start up again to recruit experienced people. I only hope that we will not have to import trained people for the industry in the future. So we have to retain them in the industry. But to retain that, we need the support from everyone, especially from the local tourism and domestic tourism as well, to patronize our establishments and to go forward. Coming back again on that, what Kimarli was telling you about the PCR test. I mean, I don't know why we have to pay in dollars, because the legal currency of the country is rupees, as you all know. And most of 90% of my members are from the SME sector. So they don't have a dollar account, or they don't have, because we get paid from the client only after the client arrives, and perhaps in some cases when he goes back. So we don't have the dollars in stock to go beforehand and pay for the PCR and so on. Whereas if we go directly to a hospital, we could pay in rupees and we could get a receipt and submit it to the SLTDA. And this is a much simpler way and more way. So I think that's why I said we need to have some protocols which are more friendly towards getting in people. Now, I was told yesterday that we are opening a flight to Russia, to Moscow, Sri Lankan Airlines. We have not got any bookings as yet. But why have we not got any bookings? Because our protocols are too strict. I mean, nobody's going to come on holiday and have the 4 or 5 PCRs done, especially the Russians. If you have to get that market, because at the moment, I think it's only the Russian and the CIS market that we can think of, because the rest of Europe is shut for us, because we are also in a red zone country, and some countries don't allow them to travel to us, or they have this quarantine when they go back. So we have to take this opportunity and try to see whether we can push the Russian market at least for the coming few months. But then again, we have to speak to the health authorities. Now you take the apparel sector, for example. It's one of the #1 sectors here. And I mean, they get everything they want. They go and talk to the health authorities. They get everything, that people are immunized and they get all the facilities they need. But we, being the #2 industry, bringing so much of foreign exchange, I think we have to make some noise. We have to lobby with the health authorities. And of course, I must say the health authority guideline doesn't say that we have to go and pay the SLTDA. It says that you have to pay for 2 PCR tests, but it doesn't say where or what. So as long as we have some proof that we have paid, I think that's good enough for to convince the people to get them into the country. It should be a easier way. The methodology should be changed. I think an easier way to get the people into the country.
Kimarli, I know the tourism minister just recently was saying something to the effect that they are looking at drawing tourists back into the country, introducing a new system, a better system, if at all, to attract more tourists. So just picking up on where Mahen spoke, I mean, apart from Russia, are we looking at any other markets as well, specific markets?
Actually, before I answer that question, I saw a comment on your chat. Basically, it's a kind of a valid and maybe an interesting comment. Somebody has said, if you only focus on Russia, it would put people off against your country. I don't know who commented it, and it's an interesting comment. And I think that's something that the industry also must be cognizant of. Because if you only pitch that, whether that they would need to tell me, because they are the experts, if that would have an impact. Because that's a comment that somebody has made, which I thought is quite interesting. I did have similar comments when we did the pilot project as well. So this is something. So yes, with regards to, I mean, basically with the vaccination program growing in Sri Lanka, what we need to do as an industry is pitch to ambassadors in Sri Lanka, whether it is the UK ambassador, whether it's the French ambassador, whether it is the other ambassadors in Europe or anywhere else for that matter, to build their confidence that our country is safe. Because they are the first people who will inform to their governments about the feedback about Sri Lanka. Is it safe? Is it not? They are the people on the ground. Then simultaneously, which we are doing from a regulator perspective, we are in touch with them. But from the industry perspective, it will be useful if they too, sort of in a very professional manner, go and try to, it's not like putting a switch on, right? So you have to build confidence. Number 2 is we are talking to with our ambassadors, our head of missions in our country. I spoke to the UK ambassador, our mission head. So she is talking to, for example, the tourism minister there about removing us from moving us from